Yes, indeed. This is yet another war update for today. This is March 1st. And I want to focus on two issues in this video. And they're both brought up. They were brought up back to back in a briefing done today by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, who is the founder of the Israel Defense and Security Forum, known in Hebrew as Habitchonistim. It is a think tank and a forum mostly made up of former senior officers in the IDF. And it is really the premier defense and security think tank in Israel. And Amir Avivi does these amazing briefings every so often. And he brought up two issues back to back in this briefing today. So let's go ahead and watch the clip. And then I have some comments to make about it. Here we go. So here's Amir Avivi.
General, I'm curious if you can kind of compare this to the 12-day war of last year and how, the aspirations of this war seem to be much greater ultimately with the regime change. But is this just a bigger 12-day war? Israel and the U.S. are hitting more military sites, or is there something dramatically different this time around?
It's very different. First of all, having both countries fighting together side by side, this is a completely different scenario, and the amount of airplanes and capabilities that are being used are on a completely different scale. So is the goal. A change of regime is not attacking some military sites. It's a whole different thing. It's about really eliminating all the leadership. It's about destroying all centers of government, its communications. It's about the besieged forces, and also we're talking about revolutionary guards. We're talking about destroying the Iranian Navy, which President Trump talked about. So it's a completely different kind of operation. And what we see is that this time, the U.S. is not calling immediately the Iranians to go out and storm, the centers of government. We don't want to endanger them again and have tens of thousands of people killed. We first want to really degrade dramatically the capabilities of the besieged forces and the revolutionary guards, and dismantle them as much as possible, and only then call for the people to rise and fight for their country. It's obvious that in order to have a regime change, you need, on one hand, this massive attack. On the other hand, you need the Iranian people. You cannot do a regime change without the Iranian people themselves, pushing it and fighting for it. But they need help, and they're getting all the help they need to make it happen.
Generally.
Okay, so let's talk about that first issue he raises here, which is the regime change issue, okay? And what makes this war different than the 12-day war? I thought that was very well put. The combined military action by the Americans and Israelis, we didn't see that in the 12-day war. The 12-day war was the Israelis, and then the Americans came in just to do Operation Midnight Hammer, taking out the nuclear. And here you actually have a combined attack by the two militaries. Israel is providing what it provides, America what it provides, and they have this shared battle plan. But the more important point that he made here was that we're talking here about a regime change war. This is so important because in the lead up to this, it was all about the nuclear, the nuclear, the nuclear. And that's what a lot of the Americans were signaling. And American media, they're still talking about the nuclear weapons and preventing the nuclear program. Yeah, that's one of the issues. And to a lot of people, it was the only real justification to go to war. But it's not about that. It's about removing this evil regime and the whole litany of problems that they cause around the world and have been causing around the world for decades, and just changing the geopolitical map. That's what it's about. So if you want to take down a regime, it takes a lot more. It takes a lot more than what taking out the nuclear, which was the goal of the 12-day war, was. The stated goal was. But what's so interesting is what he said there about how they actually have not called, meaning the Israelis and Americans are not really calling for the people to go out into the streets just yet, because you don't want to endanger them. Very interesting point. I've been mentioning that we're kind of waiting to see how are the people going to react. Are they going to step up to bring down the regime? But here, Amir Avivi makes a great point. We don't want them out there yet. The United States and Israel have a lot more work to do degrading the IRGC, degrading the Basij. If you remember the Basij, those are the shock troops that are there to kind of put down all the protests. They're like the Gestapo of the stormtroopers of the Iranian regime. We still have a lot of work to do, meaning we, the Americans and Israelis, still have a lot of work to do degrading the IRGC, degrading the Basij forces, taking out leadership, and really bringing the regime to a point that then when the people are called out into the street, it could actually be much more successful and they won't be in danger. If they come out if the people come out to the street too early, there could still be Basij and IRGC that could shoot people, that could put down the riots, and that could actually embolden the regime that they have a chance of survival. So it's an interesting game here that perhaps it's better that the people actually wait a bit before they go out into the street. And along those lines, you see here that Trump said today, this is a fairly recent story, he said that the military campaign against Iran could last for 4 weeks or less. Here it says, U.S. President Donald Trump says the U.S. military campaign undertaken in partnership with Israel could extend for 4 weeks. Quote, it's always been a 4-week process. It's a big country. It'll take 4 weeks or less, Trump told the Daily Mail. Commenting on the war's first 3 deaths of American service members, Trump said, we expect that to happen. Unfortunately, it could happen again. This is huge. Trump is really signaling and messaging to the American people that there will be casualties. Don't hold up casualties and panic when there's a few casualties as a way of saying we have to stop this, we have to get out of here. We're going to see a big political fight on the right in the America First movement in the coming days over this issue. I guarantee it. He says Operation Epic Fury, the U.S. name for the operation, is proceeding as planned. And he said that they've likely killed 48 of Iran's top leaders. He says he's getting ready to give another address to the nation on the ongoing Iran strikes. He's hopeful that democracy will spread in Iran, but a lot of things could happen. A lot of very positive things could happen. Okay, so that was the first issue I wanted to talk about from this interview, from this briefing by Amir Avivi. And now he gets into an issue that I've been talking about a lot. If you watch my channel, you watch the Israel 365 channel, and that is the behavior of the proxies, the Iran's proxies. Here we go.
And can you give us an update about the proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis? What is their level of involvement as of right now?
It's very interesting to see that at the moment they're not fighting. Hezbollah said if Khamenei will be targeted, or if Israel and the US will try to do a regime change, they will attack, and they didn't. I think they're very, very deterred and frightened from the power, that is being used against Iran. And by the way, even if they don't shoot at all, we have to deal with them, and we'll have to dismantle them. So now we're focused on Iran, and we really want to win decisively and have a regime change. But the moment we finish with Iran, we have to deal with the Houthis and with the Hezbollah one way or another. It's either they dismantle because they lose Iran, or we'll have to deal with them. We cannot have them staying and building their capabilities the way Iran did. This is not going to happen. Israel will maintain freedom of operation to deal both with the Houthis and the Hezbollah and the militias in Iraq. There will be a moment that we'll deal with them also.
And then in terms of understanding.
Okay. So let's check in on these proxies here. Lebanon's Hezbollah vows to confront the aggression of the U.S. and Israel. This is a statement made today. Look at this. Lebanese terror group Hezbollah vows to confront the United States and Israel over their strikes on the group's key backer, Iran. Quote, we will undertake our duty of confronting the aggression of the U.S. and Israel, Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem said in a statement, adding that they would not leave the field of honor and resistance. Okay? Hezbollah mourns Khamenei, but stops short of joining the Iran war. So they're talking tough. Lebanon's Hezbollah on Sunday mourned the killing of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, but stopped short of announcing it would join the ongoing war alongside Tehran. So here you have a statement from them saying that they will confront the aggression but they haven't really said that they're rejoining the war, and they haven't, or that they will join the war, and they haven't joined the war. Okay, they pledged to continue the path of resistance and reaffirmed support for Iran, but did not announce any direct military involvement in the conflict. See, so they don't know what to do. And there was this great piece in Ynet in the Israeli media, why an analysis piece, why Hezbollah is holding back for now. So let's take a look at this. We start to understand the situation. A carefully defined division of roles has been set between Lebanon's president and prime minister. President Michel Aoun, maintains direct contact with the country's military command. Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, who's actually closer to Hezbollah, has declared a neutral policy regarding the attack on Iran. In between stands Hezbollah, which has warned that any strike on Iran's supreme leader would be considered a red line and said it will enter the fighting only if it is directly attacked. What does a red line mean? Okay, and Israel, of course, continued to attack Hezbollah weapons depots and bases in the days leading up to this war. The president and prime minister sent clear signals to Hezbollah not to join the war. Look what it says here. Despite those appeals, residents of southern Lebanon near the Israeli border remain unconvinced. On Saturday, meaning right after the war started, they started traveling northward, afraid that Hezbollah would enter the war and bring Israeli airstrikes onto South Lebanon. A Beirut resident who asked to be identified only by his initials said food shortages have worsened in Lebanon. Hezbollah has taken control of the bakeries in Beirut, and other northern areas, he said, as well as fruit and vegetable markets. Residents wait in the streets for delivery trucks, and those who can afford it buy the goods at inflated prices. This is how Hezbollah is making money now. They've taken control of the fruits and vegetables and the bakeries, and they're jacking up the prices to gouge people to make money. Okay, that's what Hezbollah is doing now in South Lebanon. So they're not endearing themselves to the people. Lebanon's leadership is closely monitoring U.S. and Israeli strikes and Iran's response, keen to avoid appearing aligned with Israel. At the same time, observers say there appears to be an understanding between Israel's security establishment and the presidential palace. Aoun himself served as Lebanon's army commander until about a year and a half ago when he was appointed president, and he maintains close working ties with the current army chief. Okay? Now, Hezbollah's response remains on hold. They've signaled that they will not act unless there's a major blow against them, and they will not intervene as long as Khamenei is not harmed. They view an assassination attempt against Khamenei as a red line, but even following the reports that Khamenei was killed, they didn't join the attacks. Okay? Between sirens in Israel and Persian Gulf states, Lebanese army troops have been working to deepen their control south of the Litani River. So the Lebanese army is now taking advantage of this situation, and they're trying to gain more control south of the Litani River, meaning the Lebanese army is trying to displace Hezbollah from being the force in the south of Lebanon. That's what they're trying to do. The army chief has publicly signaled that forces are prepared to move to a second phase of disarmament north of the river. In practice, however, coordination between the Lebanese army and Hezbollah has been reported in some cases. The army generally avoids friction with Hezbollah, given its limited capabilities and the delicate balance, because Hezbollah is kind of like a party in Lebanon and they control part of the population. So there's always this dance that they do. The Lebanese army is trying to gain control of the country. They're supposed to be disarming Hezbollah, but they don't really want to go to war with it. So what we see here is that Hezbollah is kind of stuck, not attacking, saying they will join, saying they vowed to confront the aggression, but they've been warned not to join in by the Lebanese government, and they're kind of, paralyzed right now. Meanwhile, Hezbollah in Iraq is actually attacking. They've launched a series of drone attacks. Iranian-backed militias in Iraq have launched a series of drone attacks targeting U.S. bases in Iraq. And, because the U.S. still has personnel there, there's a whole bunch of different groups with hard to pronounce names in Iraq that are backed by the Iranians. And it seems that they've now woken up because the U.S. has carried out some attacks against them. The U.S. military has facilities in Iraq, primarily in the Kurdistan region. And this makes this a little bit more interesting. So what's happened here, first let's get a sense of the lay of the land, okay? Many of these militias are part of the Iraqi government's paramilitary forces, even though they're also backed by the Iranians. That makes it kind of confusing, or they're part of the Iraqi army, sort of, but they're also sort of backed by Iran. So Kataib Hezbollah, Harakat Hezbollah, Al-Nujaba, and Asaib al-Haq are mostly sanctioned by the U.S. as terrorist groups, but they serve Iran, but they're also part of the Iraqi government. You see what a mess this is? In other words, let me make this simple. Iran kind of occupies Iraq to a certain extent. They have a similar position there as they have with Lebanon. It's different in some ways. It's similar in other ways. That the Iranians back a whole bunch of these jihadist militia groups in Iraq who also function kind of as parties in the government and even as part of the military, which means that Iran has a hold on Iraq. One of the effects of the Iranian regime falling, if it does fall, will be kind of the liberation of Iraq. Not that Iraq is going to become like this free Jeffersonian democracy. What I mean is that they will no longer have their decision-making be under the thumb of the Iranians. And that means that Iraq will be able to actually make its own decisions. We don't even know where Iraq stands. Ever since Saddam Hussein fell, it's been kind of occupied by different people, the Americans partially, the Iranians partially, and it hasn't really been an independent state. There are some 100,000 men in these militias. Okay, in northern Iraq, there are Kurdish dissident groups who oppose the Iranian regime. Okay, and here he gives the names of some of them. So because there's these Kurdish militias near the Iraq-Iran border, okay, and they're opposed to the Iranian regime, they want Kurdish independence. And there's a group, and I mentioned this in one of my updates, I think yesterday, that these groups of Kurds have banded together and they're getting ready to pick at the carcass of the Iranian regime, as it were, or to aid the fall of the Iranian regime. They're gunning for some sort of independence. So they're anti-Iranian regime. So what did these militias do? They've not only targeted the U.S. forces, they've also targeted the Iranian dissident groups. So the Kurds in Iraq who are opposed to the Iranian regime have become targets of the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq, kind of like a little proxy battle, a little proxy attack, attacking enemies of the Iranian regime in Iraq on behalf of Iran. That's so that's the way the Iraqi militias backed by Iran have sort of joined the war. Since the war began, some of the Iranian-backed militias have appeared mobilized to attack U.S. forces. Drones have also been launched against the Kurdistan region. Okay? So, and there were also drones that hit the Erbil International Airport. That's an airport in Iraq. And Kurdish headquarters there. Okay, so that's what's going on in Iraq. So they're stirring a little bit. The Iranian-backed Iraqi militias are stirring a little bit. They're not quite as impotent and paralyzed as Hezbollah in Lebanon. Okay, meanwhile, the Houthis, let's check in on them. The Houthis made an announcement today. The Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen have decided to resume missile and drone attacks on shipping routes and on Israel in support of Iran. They've made an announcement. They're going to start attacking international shipping routes. That's according to two senior Houthi officials who spoke in condition of anonymity because there's no official announcement from the Houthi leadership. They've just said they're going to start attacking international shipping again. Get ready. One of the officials said the rebels' first attack could come as soon as tonight. The rebels ceased their attacks on the Red Sea shipping route as part of a deal with the Trump administration that also halted U.S. strikes against the Houthis. Remember that. When the Trump administration was hitting the Houthis to get them to stop attacking international shipping in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait down there in the Horn of Africa, they were attacking them to get them to stop attacking international shipping. They stopped attacking international shipping. It was a deal with the Trump administration. And now they're saying that they will start attacking international shipping again, but it's not an official statement. And the Presidential Council of Yemen has warned the Houthis against escalation. The Presidential Council has warned the Houthi militia against engaging in dangerous military escalation, which could drag Yemen into a devastating international conflict. The council, led by President Rashad al-Alimi, condemned Iran's attacks on neighboring countries and held Tehran responsible for the consequences. It expressed solidarity with the affected countries and called for international action to deter such violations. The council also reviewed efforts to normalize the situation in Aden and liberated provinces and praised government efforts to improve services and security with Saudi support. There you go. The Saudis have been attacked by the Iranians. The Saudis, as we talked about earlier today, they were encouraging President Trump quietly behind the scenes to attack Iran. They hate the Iranians. And this Presidential Council of Yemen is backed by the Saudis. And they're pointing at the Houthis and saying, don't enter this war. Don't drag Yemen into this. Okay. The council supported financial and administrative reforms, including the approval of the national budget, and commended the military's readiness to thwart Houthi plots. So we have a little bit of another little proxy struggle going on where the Houthis are backed by Iran. The Presidential Council of Yemen is backed by the Saudis. So we could have another little hot spot down there in Yemen, which is another proxy battle in this larger war. Okay, there's our check-in on the Iranian proxies. I hope this helped. I hope this clarifies a few more things for you. Please make sure to share and tell people about this channel and like it and drop a comment. Let me know what you think of what we're doing on this channel. Let me know what you think of these videos. If there's any questions you have or any topics you want me to cover, I try to get through the comments. So I'll keep reading them, although it's been a really busy couple days, obviously. And I'll be back with with more updates tomorrow. Please be sure, as always, to check out all the great content we're putting up at Israel 365. God bless you.